Greetings and welcome to Unit 6, Local Government in Texas. In this lecture, we're going to be looking at the relationship between the local government, state government, and the national government. We're going to look at the structure and the function of county government in Texas and the structure and function of municipal government in Texas. So without any further delay, because we have lots to cover, let's dive right into this. Okay, so the relationship between the local government, state government, and the national government. Let's recall back to federalism, right? That state governments and the national government are autonomous, right? They can make laws. The Texas legislature, for example, can make laws. The U.S. Congress can make laws. The Texas governor gets to implement laws. The president gets to implement national laws, etc., etc. Right? So they share. We share some powers. Another power that we share: Texas, we're allowed to tax, just like the federal government is allowed to tax. We can borrow money, just like the federal government can borrow money. So we have autonomy, right? What's interesting is that states like Texas and every other state in the United States, we have this autonomy. Now, what's interesting to note is the amount of power that local governments have, or should I say, don't have. We may recall that municipalities and county governments, their power literally derives directly from the state. So the state controls explicitly how much power local governments have. And this is explicit. Again, this kind of goes back to the Constitution as well, about how rigid it is, right? So state and federal government, we share powers. The state has some autonomy. Now, we have to recall, again, that the National Supremacy Clause guarantees that if there is a conflict between state and federal law will always supersede. This is baked into the U.S. Constitution by the framers of the Constitution. Right, so we got to keep that in mind. Anyways, I'm digressing. So counties are given specific powers by the state under the Constitution and state statutes, and have virtually no flexibility. Let me say that again. No flexibility. The local governments exercise the exact power that the state grants it. There is no implied powers like we see with the U.S. Congress, right? That the U.S. Congress has what's known as the elastic clause, or necessary and proper clause, allows the U.S. Congress to be able to imply powers that are not explicitly written or stretch beyond what the Constitution originally is written. We don't have that flexibility here. That flexibility does not exist. The reason for that is the states control the amount of power that local governments have. There's another way we can say this, and this is my preferred way, that local governments are literally creatures of the state. Right? If you're a musician, you'll be able to. This is an analogy I like to use for musicians. That what right does the musician have to tell the sheet of music directly in front of them what note to play? None. Only the composer has that right? Very similar here. Local governments are nothing more than a musician doing exactly what they are being told to do by a sheet of music, and that sheet of music happens to be the state. Right? So there's literally no flexibility here regarding how much power, regarding implied powers or anything like that. It doesn't exist here. Local governments are creations of the state. I'm digressing. Anyways, so cities are created by those citizens who apply for a charter to create one. So the creation of municipalities is actually done by we the people through applying for charter. And again, this is through this application is through the state. So it's interesting to note that. Let's carry on. So preemption laws. These are state laws that limit the powers of local governments. Okay. So again, we see again no flexibility here. There is limitations placed on the amount of power that local governments are allowed to exercise because the state constitution, or should I say the state creates these entities, so therefore the state grants it the power that it can exercise. I know this is a point I'm hammering pretty hard, but it's worth noting because this is an important component of understanding how local governments operate, because we are at the mercy of the state. Now, typically, historically speaking, political parties like to give, specifically the Republican Party, like to give more control to local governments. Local governments are closer to the people, so more power to the people, that kind of idea. But we are seeing a retraction of that in recent years, more state control rather than giving control to the local government. So we see some fluctuation on how much power the local governments exercise, because the state literally grants them the power to operate, if that makes sense. Okay. So let's carry on here. So conservatives, like I mentioned just a moment ago, historically favor local control. That's starting to wane. We're starting to see, like I said, here recently, in the last year or two, maybe longer, we've seen this change to more state control rather than local control, and that's an interesting shift politically within the parties. We can speculate on why. One of the reasons for that is we are starting to see the urban areas like Austin, Dallas, San Antonio, of course, Houston, being exercising in these counties. We're seeing counties exercising authority that doesn't match the agenda of the Texas legislature or the Texas governor. So because of that, one could argue that we're starting to see more power stripped from local government for politically motivated reasons, i.e., what these big counties, what these big urban areas are doing are not ideologically compatible with the governor or with the Texas legislature. Now, whether you buy that or not, of course, that's up to ideology, right? But that is one explanation for this. So in other words, it's a retaliation for these, for implementing policies or for using power that goes against the agenda of a specific political party. I digress. So urban areas tend to lean more progressive or liberal, and this kind of makes sense. In the rural areas, we see more conservatism at play, at work. It's more conservative in the rural areas, and in the urban areas, we lean more progressive or liberal, and this makes sense. Remember, we've talked about political cultures, right? In that, we are seeing urban areas grow more and more and more as people are moving, specifically for economic opportunities, but also for educational opportunities. There's a host of reasons, and I won't get into those again, but there's a host of reasons why people move. And people do tend to move to urban areas for employment and for various other reasons. But the point I'm trying to make is, as people are migrating from other states, they're coming here. And as they're coming here, they're coming to the urban areas, which means they'll bring their political ideology with them, they'll bring their experiences with them, they'll bring that, that we see that diffusion again. So all that said, all I'm getting at is we're seeing urban areas going more progressive, more liberal, and we're seeing the rural areas maintaining or keeping the status quo. Right? And this kind of reflects urban versus rural living, if you will. The lifestyles are different, right? And we see that politically. That's all I'm trying to get at. Let's continue on. So, county governments are created by the state. I've hammered this pretty hard already, right? But it's worth repeating that county government authority solely derives directly from the state. The state gets to control. So we see again this fluctuation of how much power and authority and responsibilities that local governments have. But local county governments do serve as administrative units of the state, right? So imagine for one moment, okay, just bear with me here. Imagine for one moment if you had to take care of some business, state business. Let's say you lived in Houston and you had to drive all the way to Austin to take care of this business. Or let's go a little bit further. Let's say you lived in El Paso, maybe Brownsville, maybe Texarkana, right? You're basically taking an entire day just to travel, right? Just to travel, and hopefully there's not such a big long line that you can take care of that business to be able to get home at a somewhat decent time, right? It's kind of hard to think like that, right? Well, in county governments act as administrative units of the state. So in essence, we can take care of our business instead of traveling hours upon hours upon hours. We're just driving down to our local county courthouse to take care of our business. And that's the critical component here, right? That's the critical component. And that these county governments serve as these units for the state. Right? So there are three types of county governments that we should know a little bit about. So let's dive right into this. Okay? So, if my computer will work. All right, so type 1, we have council administrator system. Okay, this is where voters elect council members, and the council appoints administrator to oversee the operation of the government. So in other words, the people vote for a council, and then the members within that council appoint someone to oversee the operations of the government. Okay, so an example of this is Sussex County, Delaware. Okay, if I can talk. Type 2, we see here is the council-elect executive system. This is where voters elect council members and the executive. So the executive performs functions similar to those of the state governor, and the council members serve almost like they kind of mirror that of the legislature. Right? An example of this is King County, Washington. And the third type, commission system. This is where voters elect commissioners to serve on a commission performing all legislative and executive functions. Okay, so the commission system here serves both in both capacities, both as a legislative, i.e., passing code, local codes, etc., and serve as an executive, as in implementing. So the commission system, we have this duality within it. Okay, so each county has a county commissioner's court with 4 commissioners and a county judge presiding over the court. So just to be clear, real fast, of these 3 types, which one do you think Texas has? I'll wait. Exactly, yes, we use the commission system. Each county here in Texas, because I've already said it, but each county here in Texas, we have a commissioner's court. Each county, so 254 counties, 254 commissioners' court. Okay, each county has one, and it doesn't matter the size. Right? We have small counties. For example, the county that I'm originally from, Last time I saw its population size was 50,000 people. Last time I saw the population size. So they get 4 commissioners with a county judge. Harris County has well over 4 million population, right? And yet we have 4 county commissioners and 1 county judge that presides over the court. So in essence, and I know at commissioner's court, when we think of court, we often think of judge. We often think of the judiciary, and I can understand why. But here in this context, when we say county commissioner's court, this is what we are referring to. We're referring to the commission system that we have, and that there are 4 county commissioners. Each county is broken up into precincts. So we have 4 commissioner precincts within each county, regardless of the size, physical size or population size. Okay, and the county judge, which often sounds like a court and gavel and interpreting the law type of judge. That's not what we got here. We're going to take a deep dive into that in just a moment. But just note that the county judge, that's the title, and that this position presides over this county commissioner's court, who acts as legislative and executive functions within the county. Okay. So the Texas Constitution mandates this form of local government. All county governments, must have, as prescribed by the Texas Constitution, this system, this commission system. Let's move on. So responsibilities of the county commissioner's court, it's a lot, right? Because again, serves as a legislative and an executive function here. So they establish the county's budget and the tax rate. They approve all budgeted purchases of the county, which includes, but not limited to, equipment required to repair roads, equipment to run the county elections. The elections for the county, yes. They have to purchase that equipment. Equipment for offices, computers, phones, scanners, printers, all this sorts of stuff. These are purchases that the county commissioner's court needs to approve, right? So they also fill vacancies in elective and appointive offices within the county. They set all salaries and benefits for the county, for county employees. Which, tell me what you think about this, right? Tell me what you think about this. If you are a county judge or a county commissioner, and you could set your own pay, what would you set it to? Be honest. Be honest. Would you aim low? Would you say, kind of in the middle? Or would you aim as high as you can to get as much money as possible? I don't know. I don't know if I like the idea of elected officials choosing how much money they get to make. I don't know. Maybe there should be an independent party, not a third party, but an independent source to judge how much they get to make. Or maybe they should leave it up to the people. We the people. I don't know. I have questions. Let me know what you think, though. Right? Let me know what you think about that. It's an interesting thought, isn't it? I digress. Let's move on. Right. So they have the exclusive authority to authorize contracts. This county commissioner's court, with these 4 county commissioners, along with this county judge that presides over it, they have sole authority to authorize contracts. So what kind of contracts could we authorize? Well, this could include contracts such as venues. If we're talking about a organization having a contract with the county to use one of the county buildings, for example, or IT granting, maybe the IT department of the county needs some software, but that requires a contract. So that goes through the county commissioner's court. You see how this works? It also provides and maintains all county buildings and facilities. They are responsible. County commissioners, the county commissioners court, they really do handle the operations of the county, including the facilities, including all county buildings. In certain counties, county commissioners court is more of, they do more of maintaining and building roads than anything else, right? Of course, each county is unique. Each county is different, as with different needs, different geographic characteristics, etc. But I'm digressing. But the point is that county commissioners maintains all county buildings and facilities. Okay. So qualifications. If you want to be a county commissioner, you have to be a U.S. citizen, a Texas resident for 12 months, i.e. a year, a county resident for 6 months. Note that this is a 4-year term. You do serve 4 years as a county commissioner. You have to be at the bare minimum 18 years of age. And there is no, let me say this again, no formal education or experience required. And these are the qualifications as established by the Constitution. So what's interesting to note about this is, again, U.S. citizen, Texas resident for a year, county resident for 6 months, and 18 years of age. Right? These are the qualifications as established. So what kind of characteristics do we look for in candidates comes into play? These informal characteristics, right? That we will learn more about in later lectures. But just note for right now that there are informal qualifications, informal characteristics that we, the people, we tend to apply to candidates. Right? I'm digressing, but the point is no formal education is required. And they oversee and maintain the buildings and the facilities of the counties and county roads. Let's move on. So, county judge responsibilities. Now, again, I've ran into a thought before when I served with a political party for 7 years. I ran into this phenomenon where people often thought of the county judge as being how do I put this? As needing law experience. They have to be an attorney. They have to be a lawyer in order to serve as the county judge, because the title county judge, emphasis on the judge. And this is just not the case. This just isn't the case. Look at these responsibilities. Okay, let's take a look at this. Right? So county judge responsibilities. They are the presiding officer, presiding officer of the county commissioner's court. They serve as the budget officer in counties with fewer than 225,000 residents. Right? So the county where I'm from, this is definitely, they serve as that budget officer. Here in Harris County, we well exceed this, so we don't have. So the county judge does not serve in that capacity. Anyways, most have broad judicial duties. Yes. Okay, so yes. Such as, they do preside over misdemeanor, criminal, and small civil cases, probate matters, and appeals from the justice of the peace. Yes, this is true. But the Constitution does not demand any type of law experience. None. Let me say it again. None. Right? So small judicial roles, okay, right? But there is no requirement to have those type of. We're going to take a look at these requirements in just a moment, but let's just keep that in mind. And they serve as the head of the emergency management for the county, right? So let's recap this one more time. Presiding officer, the head, if you will, of the leader of the County Commissioners Court. They serve as the budget officer, assuming that we have fewer than 225,000 residents. And they serve as the head of emergency management for the county. Right? The most of the responsibilities they have actually deals with governance. Some have to do with the court, or should I say, judicial duties. Now let's take a look at the requirements. Right? Let's take a look at this. So qualifications to be elected as county judge here in Texas. You must be a U.S. citizen. You must be a resident of Texas for at least 1 year. County resident for 6 months. Again, this is a 4-year term. And 11 years, you have to be 18 years of age. So we see the same qualifications as with the county commissioners. But note this, just like there was no formal education required, there's no formal education required here. And there is no judicial experience needed to be a county judge. Let me say that again. Because again, this goes back to a phenomenon that I ran into serving, volunteering in political campaigns like I have, that county judges, while it may be nice, specifically when you have a probate matter, okay, yes, it may serve you well, agreed. I'm never going to say never to that. But according to the qualifications as established by the Constitution, it's not required. That is a skill that can be obtained later, after you've been elected. Does this make sense? I'm digressing a lot. So let's move on. But these are the qualifications for the county judge. Also note, since they do serve as the head of emergency management for the county, note there's no formal education required for that. Right? That's what I'm trying to get at. Anyways, let's move on. So let's take a look at the county clerk. This is an office. The county clerk is a independently elected position that we, the people, we elect at the county level. Right? So the county clerk. Let's look at the overview of the responsibilities that a county clerk has. They maintain the main duties of the county clerk are to serve as the clerk of the county court and the county commissioner's court. So they are the record keeper, right? They act as the recorder of deeds and other instruments here at the county level. They issue marriage license and they take depositions. The county clerk is responsible for conducting countywide special and general elections for handling absentee voting. So the county clerk is the main records keeper for the county. Okay, think of it kind of like the Secretary of State of Texas, right? They serve in that capacity as the record keeper. This is what I'm trying to get at. They serve the record keeper not only for the county but also for the county court. They keep and hold on to documents like deeds, right? If you decide to get married one day, right, you will have to go to a county courthouse to get a marriage license. And you would do this by seeking out the county clerk. They're the ones in charge of it. Right? So anyone who's been married has seen a county clerk to get that marriage license. Right? And on top of that record keeping responsibilities they are also the ones that manage and conduct countywide elections. Right? I mentioned already, I volunteered 7 years, right, to a political party. I was involved in many campaigns during that time. And one of the things that's interesting was working as an election worker and having to return the ballots. Because back then we used paper ballots, we didn't have electronic voting quite yet. And I remember taking the ballots, they were all placed into a ballot box, right? And I had to take the ballot box up to the county clerk. And it was Oh man, those were long nights. Those were long nights because there were people ahead, right? And depending upon how far you live, depending upon how far the election was held away from the county courthouse, you might be in line for a while. Right? Those were long nights. But anyways, they are responsible for conducting countywide special and general elections. Okay? So let's move on here. Because we are coming close to the end here. So county clerk requirements, and the county clerks are required to attain 20 hours of continuing education during each calendar year that begins after election or appointment. So there is a qualification, a requirement to continue obtain education. To help them serve in this capacity as record keeper and to manage our special elections and our general elections here at the county level. So, what are the qualifications? Well, as determined by the Constitution, right? U.S. citizen, a resident of Texas for at least 12 consecutive months, a resident of the county for at least 6 consecutive months, registered to vote in the county, and at least 18 years of age. We should also note that they cannot have been convicted of a felony, which they have not been pardoned or otherwise released from resulting in disabilities, and they cannot have been determined by a court to be incapacitated, right? Mentally incapacitated, unable to serve. Right? So these are the qualifications as established. So again, interesting, right? So these are the qualifications to be a candidate. The continuing education is something that you have to complete once you are elected, if that makes sense. I don't know if I explained that well just a moment ago, but that's what we're looking at. These are the qualifications, and that continuing education component kicks in after you win your election. All right, let's move on. So municipalities. Let's talk about municipalities. So we're moving away from county government, and there's a host of other county government positions we could talk about. You know, county, the sheriff, the tax collector. We could talk about the. Oh man, there's another one that skips my mind. But we're going to move now onto municipalities. So regarding municipalities, again, and when we say municipalities, we are referring to cities. Cities like Houston, Austin, San Antonio, Gilmore, Longview, Tyler, Fort Worth, all these cities, right? These are municipalities. So, what functions do municipalities serve? I'm glad you asked. Right? They help with water, sewage services. There's city facilities such as they help with these with facilities like parks, zoning, and law enforcement, and a host of other things. What is zoning, by the way? Zoning is the way that governments control the physical development of land within this jurisdiction, within the boundaries of the city, right? And the kinds of use of which each individual property may be put, right? So when we talk about zoning, we're talking about divvying up land to be used for commercial or for housing, right? Zoning laws typically specify the areas in which residential, industrial, recreational, and commercial activities may take place, in other words. Right? So municipalities, they rely on property tax revenue, user fees, and a portion of sales tax within those city limits. And of course, business taxes. This is the source of revenue to be able to pay city employees, to be able to build and maintain municipalities, these services that they provide. Right? And there are two types of municipal governments we need to become familiar with. Let's dive into this. So type 1 is the mayor-council system. Right? This is where voters elect a mayor and members to serve on the city council. And there are two types of mayor systems, right, within this mayor-council system. This is going to get a little trippy, so bear with me, but we will get through this, okay? So the strong mayor system. This is where the mayor has appointment, budgetary, and veto powers. Right? So when we say a strong mayor, we are not referring to the physical abilities. We're not referring to the leadership style. No. What we are referring to is simply the amount of power for which is granted to that mayor's position. Does this make sense? So they have budgetary powers, veto powers, appointment powers. A strong mayor, a mayor who serves in a city, in a municipality that has adopted this strong mayor system, they serve almost like the president. They have that type of level of authority at the municipality level. Okay. Versus when we have a weak mayor system, again, we're not referring to leadership style, we're not referring to personal characteristics of the individual. What we are referring to is just the type of mayor-council system for which they have. Okay? So this is here we see more of a ceremonial role as more of a spokesperson for the city rather than vetoing power, whether having vetoing powers or budgetary powers. Okay, so an example of a strong mayor system is here in Houston. An example of a weak mayor system can be found in Gilmore, Texas. Okay. Type 2, okay, the council manager system. This is where voters elect members of the city council and a mayor who will also be a member of the city council. Okay, the mayor's role is ceremonial. The city council can appoint a city manager to serve as an administrative head of the municipality. And we see an example of this in Livingston, Texas, just north here of Houston, or north of Harris County. So we've looked at local governments. Specifically, we looked at the relationship between national, state, in the counties. We've taken a look at some of the responsibilities. We've taken a look at the county commissioner's court and the county clerk, and we've taken a look at this municipal systems here, specifically the strong mayor council system and the weak mayor council system, and we've taken a look at the council manager system. So this concludes this lecture. If you have any questions, thoughts, or concerns, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. I'm more than willing to help you out. Until next time, peace.